Let's talk about baseline water sampling rules. For instance, in Pennsylvania, they passed something called Act 13. What this act does, it's a presumption of liability on the part of the oil and gas operator for any well within 2,500 feet. There's no requirement in the state for pre-drill sampling, but if there's an impact to a well within that distance of an oil and gas well, then it is assumed that the fault is that of the oil and gas operator. So what this has caused is the oil and gas operators to undertake baseline water sampling in Pennsylvania to protect themselves against claims. In Ohio, Senate Bill 314 was passed, and this actually instructs industry to collect pre-drill samples within 300 feet of conventional wells and 1,500 feet for horizontal wells. In North Dakota, they have rules requiring the mineral developer to collect pre-drill sampling within 2,640 feet or a half a mile of oil and gas wells. And they must do this 1 year prior to drilling activities. In New York, they have rules that are currently under development. And again, they have issues that address distance within 1,000 to 2,000 feet, depending on water source. West Virginia, again, like Pennsylvania, has this presumption of liability for private wells. In this case, it's within 1,500 feet. So once again, there's an incentive for the industry to do baseline sampling in those cases. Individuals, private well owners in West Virginia are also encouraged to do their own sampling. In Illinois, rules require oil and gas industry to sample all water sources 3 times actually, within 1,500 feet. And also post-completion sampling at 6, 18, and 30 months after wells have been hydraulically fractured. In Wyoming, they require up to 4 available water sources within a half a mile of oil and gas activity to be sampled prior to activities. And again, they have a post-sampling requirement. 2 samples required at different intervals. The first one from 12 to 24 months, the second from 36 to 48 months after activities have been completed. And then there are other water quality sampling rules and regulations in place for other states that are not as prescribed. For instance, in Louisiana, USGS has a statewide program to assess water quality in areas of active oil and gas activities. In North Carolina, likewise, the USGS will be conducting baseline groundwater quality sampling of public and private wells and compile well records in areas of potential oil and gas activities. So it varies quite a bit, actually, from one state to the next. But increasingly, states where there is increased oil and gas activities, and in particular hydraulic fracturing, states are putting in place rules and guidance for doing this. So you can see there's quite a variation from state to state. Another issue here is just how many wells need to be sampled. And it varies again from state to state, and there's a reason for this. It's because of the geographic variability that exists in the different states. In some states like North Dakota, where you have very sparse population, very large land holdings, it's very different than in Pennsylvania, where you have multiple people with homes and ranches in a very small space. This is one of the reasons there's all these variations. For instance, how many wells do you actually have to sample? Now again, in Pennsylvania and in West Virginia, there's this presumption of liability. And that really puts the onus on the industry to come up with their own programs to basically defend themselves against claims. In other states, they actually not only prescribe the distance that a well has to be sampled from an oil and gas well, but how many wells should be sampled. Some of the states require that all wells within that certain radius be sampled. Some states require a specific number of wells within that radius be sampled. Some states require that you sample wells before hydraulic fracturing begins and other operations. Some require pre-drill, but also post-completion sampling. So samples are collected after operations cease to look and be able to compare the pre-drill baseline water quality sampling with post-completion activities at that particular location. Sometimes they require even more than one pre-drill sample, and sometimes they require more than one post-drill sample. So now what happens to this data that's collected? And again, it can be collected by the operators, the state, private individuals. In Pennsylvania, the operator provides the data to the state. There's no requirement to provide it to the well owner. In Colorado and Ohio, the operator provides it to domestic well owners as well as the state. In North Dakota, there's actually no specific provisions. In New York, Illinois, Wyoming, operator provides the information to the domestic well owner and the state. And again, in West Virginia, like Pennsylvania, the operator retains the data that they collect. Private well owners are also encouraged to collect their own data.